Welcome to The Debate. Our discussion today focuses on, well, one of the most aggressive educational shifts documented in the synthesized analysis authored by Devin McClarty, specifically within the Loop Speak series. We're talking about the recent policy adopted in China requiring formal AI education for children starting, remarkably, at the age of 6. The central question arising from this strategic decision is pretty profound. Is this push for early AI literacy truly visionary progress that future-proofs society against rapid technological change? Or is it perhaps a premature developmental risk that could severely erode the essential human skills we rely on for true innovation? I believe this early adoption is a critical necessity, ensuring technological fluency and maintaining future competitiveness.
And I come at it from a fundamentally different perspective. I view this policy as, frankly, dangerously premature. It seems to prioritize a sort of geopolitical urgency over necessary foundational cognitive development. And in doing so, it puts crucial human skills, things like patience, intrinsic motivation, even the capacity for intellectual struggle, at a severe and, I think, unnecessary risk.
Okay, I see why you prioritize those developmental stages, but let me offer a perspective rooted in, let's say, practical necessity and the reality of the global technological landscape. Early AI education isn't really optional anymore. It feels like a necessity dictated by the sheer ubiquity of advanced technology already permeating children's lives. I mean, these 6-year-olds, they aren't encountering AI for the first time in some sterile classroom. They are already immersed, right? Interacting daily with powerful tools like, specialized iPads, smartphones, sophisticated voice assistants. So if technology is essentially the air they breathe, then formal education must provide the structure and the understanding of the tools they're already using. Otherwise, we're just letting them fumble blindly. Delaying this critical education until adolescence, maybe high school, that almost guarantees obsolescence.
The visionaries in the McClarty analysis make a compelling case here. The 6-year-olds of today, they'll be 26 in 2045, running the global economy, facing problems we can't even conceive of yet. Waiting until they're 16 to introduce fundamental AI concepts is, it's effectively like teaching kids the alphabet at 16. It's simply too late for genuine future-proofing. So I don't see this as the erasure of childhood, but rather the vital erasure of ignorance, leading towards collective societal advancement and, crucially, AI fluency.
That's certainly a compelling argument, based on competitive timing and this idea of technological inevitability. Though I would frame the core risk very, very differently. I fundamentally reject the framing that childhood is just, a timeline to be optimized for some future economy. Childhood is a critical developmental stage. It requires elements you seem perhaps willing to minimize: spontaneous play, the ability to make and genuinely learn from mistakes, the space for boredom, even the physical struggle of tasks like, handwriting. The core thesis of the critics in the Loop Speak analysis, as I understand it, is that introducing these immensely powerful, optimization-focused AI tools too early incentivizes instant gratification. It promotes technological shortcuts over the necessary, often difficult, process of intellectual struggle.
We really have to question the fundamental motivation we're instilling here. Why draw? Why bother writing? Or why think critically and laboriously when the machine can execute the command instantly, maybe even flawlessly? This approach, I worry, risks fostering systemic dependency, not genuine innovation. True innovation isn't typically born from just optimizing. It's born from that very struggle, failure, and patience you mentioned. This policy risks building a generation of highly efficient, maybe, operators of machines, rather than the critical thinkers who are truly capable of defining and solving novel, ambiguous problems. The greater long-term risk to society, I believe, is the erosion of deep intellectual capacity, and maybe even the ability to tolerate the difficulty inherent in original thought.
Okay, let's address that dependency argument head-on. If AI is, as I think we both agree, an omnipresent reality in their environment, then the only truly sensible path forward is to teach children to master the tool, rather than risk being mastered by it. Mastery, even at an introductory level, ensures agency. It empowers the child to navigate and even critique their world effectively. The goal is fluency, ultimately. to maintain control.
Fluency is one thing, mastery is entirely another, especially when you consider the cognitive limitations of a 6-year-old. I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that a child entering first grade possesses the necessary cognitive framework to truly master a system as complex and conceptually vast as, say, predictive algorithms or deep learning models, even if the instruction is simplified. Let's just look at the developmental milestones for a second. At age 6, abstract reasoning and theory of mind, that ability to understand perspectives and intentions different from one's own, these are still nascent, right? And this is crucial because AI output is never neutral. It inevitably reflects the data, the biases of its creators. A 6-year-old simply lacks the intellectual maturity, the life experience necessary to discern subtle truth from engineered error, or to recognize inherent data bias in AI output.
The McClarty summary makes this quite clear. This lack of cognitive scaffolding makes them profoundly vulnerable. So I argue we are not training masters. We are handing them a powerful tool they lack the requisite judgment to vet properly. We're shaping their skills, yes, but without the corresponding critical framework.
But perhaps you're defining mastery using an adult standard of critical theory. For a 6-year-old, mastery might mean something different, like prompt engineering, understanding the basic limitations of a tool like a generative AI, recognizing when the output is just, well, nonsensical. It's about building a foundational mental model. We're teaching them how the machine works conceptually, not necessarily the complex mathematical underpinnings right away. But if we wait until they have the fully formed cognitive capacity you seem to demand, the world will have already left them far behind.
But that waiting period, that period of foundational cognitive construction, it's not a liability. Arguably, it is the source of all future competitive advantage. You focus relentlessly on the developmental clock, the race, but you seem to ignore the pragmatic imperative of patience. You're treating childhood as a period that must be rushed, almost irrespective of the psychological cost.
No, I treat childhood as a period that must be prepared for the future it will inevitably face. You seem to be treating it as a static, maybe idealized period that must be protected at all costs, even if that protection leads to massive skill deficits compared to their international peers.
I treat childhood as a period of crucial development, not some global competition to be won purely by speed. Emphasizing getting further ahead by accelerating this development risks children becoming, as the critics in the analysis aptly coined it, further gone, disconnected from those foundational human skills that provide resilience, creativity. Think about it, the ability to struggle through writing a paragraph by hand, correcting your own errors, refining syntax manually. That builds deep connections regarding structure, logic. If a child consistently offloads that kind of labor to a machine from day one, they might never develop the intellectual tenacity needed to approach the truly difficult unsolved problems of the future, the ones that can't be solved by just typing in a simple prompt.
Okay, I hear that, but I'm still not entirely convinced by that line of reasoning because it seems to completely ignore the, frankly, harsh, pragmatic reality of global economic and geopolitical competition. Geopolitical advantage is demonstrably built on technological supremacy and human capital. Those nations, those populations, who start this technological literacy younger gain a permanent, compounding competitive advantage. Waiting simply means ceding economic, strategic, and technological leadership to those who are willing to adapt faster. We have to prioritize skill acquisition for future economic relevance. The documented societal and economic benefits of achieving mass AI fluency, things like improved infrastructure management, optimized resource allocation, rapid technological iteration, these seem to clearly outweigh what you frame as perhaps theoretical developmental risks. The goal of this policy, as detailed quite extensively in the LoopSpeak analysis, is fundamentally about securing the nation's place in the next century. And that, unfortunately or not, requires speed.
Speed, yes, but at what cost? That's an interesting point regarding the geopolitical race, but have you fully considered that this policy is fundamentally about shaping intellectual values, not just optimizing skills? We're talking about teaching children how to interact with a system that literally generates knowledge. introducing a tool that can instantly produce answers, produce content, without the necessary cognitive scaffolding to manage the ethical, the epistemological implications, that seems irresponsible. If the very first thing a child learns about knowledge creation is that a machine does it best and fastest, we risk compromising their ability to value independent thought, manual effort, intellectual grit. The question isn't just whether they can operate the AI, but whether they understand why they should ever not use it.
But if we wait, then the ethical training becomes purely academic, doesn't it? Divorced from the practical context of the tool itself. Isn't it better to teach them vetting and bias recognition alongside the actual use of the tool, however imperfect that understanding might be at age 6, than to teach them abstract theory at age 16 when they might have already developed entrenched poor usage habits?
Well, that assumes the ethical lesson can actually stick when they lack the cognitive ability to contextualize it fully. The tension here, as the McClarty debate really distilled it, is absolutely crucial. Does this policy primarily serve to erase the ignorance that holds societies back, or will it ultimately erase the very human skills that innovation depends on? I strongly argue that by removing the need for intellectual struggle, for frustrating problem solving in early development, we risk erasing the very foundation of true creative human innovation. We might be focusing on maximizing efficiency today, yes, but potentially sacrificing the necessary capacity for conceptual breakthroughs tomorrow.
I still firmly believe, as do the visionaries referenced in the Loop Speak series, that AI fluency is rapidly becoming a foundational literacy in the modern world. It's like learning to read or write was centuries ago. It's the language of the future economy. The risk of our societies falling behind in this unprecedented geopolitical and economic competition, it just seems to far outweigh the perceived, yet potentially strategically crippling risks to childhood development. The goal of this acceleration, as I see it, is necessary empowerment and ensuring future relevance.
And I remain focused on the profound risk of cognitive atrophy and the potential erosion of creativity and foundational critical thought. Innovation, true high-level innovation, is inherently dependent on the arduous, often error-prone and slow process of struggle, failure, and patience. Rushing this development, as the critics consistently warn, risks creating a generation inherently dependent on machines for basic intellectual labor. This could potentially compromise true long-term human progress, perhaps building a society of highly efficient operators, sure, but not the deep thinkers capable of genuine paradigm shifts.
It is undeniably a profound dilemma, one where the necessity of mastery and strategic speed clashes directly with the vulnerability inherent in early cognitive development. The material from Devin McClarty really forces us to weigh the cost of being unprepared against the cost of, perhaps, premature acceleration.
Indeed, and this choice between addressing societal ignorance, that technological imperative, and safeguarding fundamental human developmental processes, the ones essential for true long-term innovation, it ensures that this debate will continue to require very careful consideration long after the first cohort of 6-year-olds begins their AI instruction.